So I finally watched Damsel, and I'll be honest with you guys, it actually wasn't that bad. Now this movie popped up on my radar around the time when the posters for it started going out, and I was very interested to see Millie Bobby Brown in what seemed to be an action movie with her at the helm of it. The vibes just off the poster alone gave me the same feeling as Hulu's The Princess, which I also saw back when it came out, but I can't remember a goddamn thing about it to comment on if I liked it or not, but I'm pretty sure I thought it was just okay. But to be fair, whenever I don't really remember something I've watched, it's usually because I just thought it was okay, so there's that. Anyways, like I was saying, I was interested in this movie off her namesake alone because, at least for me, I'm in my early 20s, and since I'm in this field now where I'm consuming and critiquing movies on a higher frequency than the average person, I feel like it's important for me to pay attention to the young stars in my generation that'll be part of that next wave of A-listers in the Hollywood industry. Now, this is a Netflix original, so I don't think this movie is moving the needle on Millie's career or not, but still, it looked fun enough with the premise and the title, so I figured I'd give it a watch. Now, as far as what this movie is about, basically Millie gets forced to marry into this rich family to save her father's kingdom, but come to find out, this family sacrifices all the women that marry into it to this dragon as sacrifices. So a lot of the meat and potatoes of this movie is Millie trying to escape the dragon while uncovering the truth about why they are really sacrificing only women who marry into this wealthy family. What we and Millie discover is that not so long ago, this rich family slayed this dragon's only offspring, and because of that, they made this deal with the dragon that they'll continuously sacrifice their own bloodline to prevent the dragon from just destroying their castle in retaliation, which obviously the dragon could just do that and movie's over. But back to the plot. So in order for this rich family to keep the deal going but not really sacrifice their own blood, they instead offer other kings and queens financial help in exchange for their daughter's hand in marriage to their family. And right before they get sacrificed, they cut open the girl's hand as well as the boy she's marrying, and they hold them together, which apparently allows for this family's blood to seep into the girl's, which is how the dragon is able to confirm that the girl is really of this rich family's bloodline, quote unquote, because she's not really, but I guess with the blood transfusion, the dragon's able to smell it and tell that, oh, you're from this rich family, and I guess that's how they're able to get it convinced. Now, through some pretty thick plot armor, Millie is able to get the dragon to realize that it was being played this entire time, and she teams up with the dragon to burn the rich family's castle down, and it ends off with the dragon going back to Millie's home kingdom with her, so I guess the dragon is now going to be her new companion. So as I explained the story, I'm sure some eyebrows were being raised and some eyes being rolled, and to those people, I feel you, but keep in mind this movie does seem geared towards a teenage demographic, so I guess they can only get but so complex with it. Plus, with the story itself and how it's ended, it's not like this is planned to be a franchise, just a one-off thing, and with those, I would much rather a condensed story like this as opposed to something that's going to be too complex and is not going to explain anything because it's just going to be a one-off movie. So a big question might be, how were they able to get away with this for so long? And the answer to that is that they weren't. Really, technically. Early on, Millie has this dream sequence where she's down in the cave, and it shows this seems to be about a dozen or so girls, all at different points being stuck down there, and one comes up to her saying it's all a lie, which wakes her up. Then about 10 minutes later, we learn that Millie is actually only the second of 3 sacrifices needed, because the rich family slayed 3 of the dragon's offspring, kinda an eye for an eye situation. Now, the only real thing I was confused about was, okay, well, if she's the only second, how was the first able to fully map out the dungeon of the cave walls? Because they also show that apparently on the walls that she snuck into, that she slept in for the night, it had like a full map out of the whole layout of the cave. Like, did the rich family have someone sneak in the cave one night and carve the map themselves to trick the girls? Was this from a person from even before the dragon and both girls assumed it was a clue left over? Like, that part was just confusing to me. And not the type of confusion where I don't get it because it's not a complicated plot twist or revelation or anything, but more so confused like why it even existed, because it wasn't the gotcha moment I think they thought it was. Because the only other option would be making us believe that this rich family was able to coerce 12 plus families into sacrificing a daughter nobody would see again. Like, that would be an extreme reach, because I get it, kingdom time period, so you know, communication is not, as robust as it is now. But even something like that I feel would have gotten out by like girl 7 or 8, that like, hey, this kingdom somehow, like, all these girls keep going here and they keep marrying the same dude and they keep disappearing and we don't see him anymore. Like I feel like at some point we would have caught on to that, which is why I guess they decided to tighten it up and be like, oh no, it's not really 12. It's actually like only like 3 girls and she's the second one. Now, to the writer's credit, they did make the 3 sacrifices occur over like the same 3-4 day period. Like, Millie saw girl 1 when she first got to the castle, and girl 3 was having her wedding ceremony when Millie finally convinced the dragon, which was maybe like 2-3 days after she got thrown into the cave. There also was no real mention of Millie having any type of combat experience outside of her chopping some wood in the beginning of the movie, and then fast forward a day later, she's holding her own against a dragon that still had enough in the tank tank to literally burn down an entire castle and easily handle actual knights. Which is obviously when we start to get into the Mary Sue territory, but they did show Millie basically only being able to make it as far as she did by outsmarting the dragon, and pure luck helped by plot armor thicker than some cold grits, so it's not like they did something crazy and had her actually engaging in combat with the dragon. Well, now that I think about it. But anyways, how was the movie itself? It was cool. I didn't go into it expecting some life-changing experience. Sometimes movies can just be good to pass the time, and that's what this was. Would I recommend it? Maybe to a certain type of person, but even still, it's not something to rush to. I will say Millie was giving her all in this performance, which is something I'll always give her credit for, because I have yet to see her in something where she isn't giving 100%. Even the Godzilla movies, people forget about that she's in. Angela Bassett is also in this movie as well, which is a wild casting choice to me, considering that they didn't really use her talents, because she's just not in the movie like that. Like seriously, they could have literally got some C or D list actress for her part, which hey, no disrespect to Miss Angela Bassett, but I don't know, first seeing her pop up, then seeing her lack of important role she played was just head scratching to say the least. Like to her, get your coin queen, but to Netflix, y'all could have saved a few dollars because I know she wasn't cheap. Speaking of cheap, one thing that didn't seem cheap was the production on this movie, because if there is one takeaway from this movie, it's that it looks beautiful. A lot of the set pieces I was very into visually, like look at this screenshot for instance. This looks like something out of the Lord of the Rings film. It looks like something that you would see on like a $100 million budget kingdom, like Lord of the Rings, what am I trying to say? Dungeons and Dragons type of movie. I like how the dark scenes were well lit as well, which is nowadays something that you actually have to give credit for. The color grading was top tier. Like in the beginning, we were able to tell Millie's family wasn't in the wealthiest of kingdoms just by the blueness of it and with the snow and everything like that. And then we get to the rich family's kingdom not even like 10-15 minutes later, where it's all these warm colors are going on, it's a lot of gold being shown. And I don't know, recently since I've started reviewing stuff, I've learned to appreciate things I overlooked before, just like how a movie is color graded and the storytelling that can be done without a word being said, which is very representative in how this movie is just color graded. As far as everything else, nothing really stood out to me outside of wanting to see Millie in more action stuff, which she shows she has the range for, but I feel like anyone familiar with her work could tell that she could pull off a character that has to be in a combat and stunt-like scenario. And I know I'm saying that about the telepathic girl from Stranger Things, but that to me is a big difference from the action sequences in this movie, which were done just fine. All things considered, nothing really stood out to me, good or bad. So to get into the rating of this film, I think a C+ fits the bill. There were things that I liked, things I could care less for, and things I was just whatever about. This movie is a far cry from phenomenal, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. I know nowadays it's either trash or classic when it comes to rating stuff, but trust me, things that are just okay still exist out here, and there's nothing wrong with that. Oh yeah, her dad in this movie also died, but I wasn't that emotionally invested in dude, and he's the one who gave her up, so kinda good riddance, I guess. Till next time, remember to eat your veggies.